John is here for another video. For anyone who remembers, he was in my Cobenfy video that we did a few weeks back talking about the new antipsychotic. And today, he is my guest for a specific Valentine's Day themed video all about when your partner has psychosis. So John has been with me through 2 psychotic episodes right at the beginning of our relationship, which was pretty wild. And he's here to share with us what that was like as a partner.
It's actually one really long episode.
Yeah, with like a little break.
With breaks when you'd go to the hospital. And you say you went 2 times. I feel like you went 3 times.
I did go 3 times.
Yeah, and it was scary.
It was.
You definitely had a huge shift in your personality. You wouldn't ever stop talking. It would be really fast. That would be interspersed with times you'd just start crying and be really scared and say you needed to go to the hospital, with little bouts in between where you weren't being honest about what was going on with your mental health. Mm-hmm. I used to have to check in with Carolyn every day. My first text would be like, how are you doing? How's things going? And they would interpret it like, oh, I woke up, I had this and that. And I'd have to say, no, I mean, how is your brain treating you? You know?
Oh, I remember those texts.
Yeah. Like, how's your thinking?
Is your brain treating you nice today?
Are you fixating on things you shouldn't be? It was really worrying and really, really scary. Yeah. There were times when I didn't think we were going to work.
We were really early in our relationship when I had a psychotic episode. How far into our relationship was that?
Maybe a month.
Oh, God. Yeah.
You went to Chicago.
Oh, it was after Chicago.
It was our first or second trip to Chicago.
Right.
Our first trip after we started actually dating, whatever you want to call it. The first trip after that, where things started to get really bad.
Yeah, I basically went to Chicago in one mental state and came back in another. And I can never really tell when it's happening. It usually takes other people around me noticing the signs before I even know for myself. So once it is pointed out, I can kind of tell before it gets too far gone. But John, having, never really had a partner with psychosis before, had to kind of learn it, like hit the ground running,
Yeah. It was pretty easy, actually. It was scary, but as far as trying to manage it and recognizing it was pretty simple. He just sounded weird one day on the phone. And then we had a conversation on your way to Chicago about your mental state because there was a medication that you were lacking.
Right.
If you remember. So we had conversations about like what to watch for. Because I already knew this might be a thing. We had plenty of conversations about that.
Oh, yeah. He could tell I was schizoaffective as soon as we met.
Right. And I just remember, so something was off when you were in Chicago still. And when you got back, because we were still walking at the time, I didn't have a car. We were in downtown Mount Vernon. We were at a stoplight, and you were pondering like how weird it is that we have roads and how we have cars
and how gasoline works.
And when I was trying to get you to explain what you meant, like you couldn't. Just the fundamental idea of reality was the issue. And so right then, I knew something was up. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always think of it like one of the first telltale signs for me is what I like to call psychotic thinking, which is kind of a precursor even to delusions and hallucinations where I just start losing my grip. Like I just start having trouble understanding reality and I'm questioning reality. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm starting to head towards the direction that I won't just start questioning it. I'll start believing things. And then that's where it progresses to.
Yeah. There were a lot of ups and downs, a lot of changes in behavior. It wasn't rapid. I guess in the grand scheme of things, it was pretty fast, but like over the course of a couple of weeks, your mood would slowly change. I just had to really keep my eye on you. It got kind of scary. It was definitely more noticeable after the first hospitalization. Your cray-cray vacay, as you called it. But you came back and like immediately almost seemed worse after that first one. Like you were kind of okay while you were there, and it was almost like just the break from the little bit of stress calmed your anxiety down to the point where you slowed down, but very quickly began just, you talk really fast and you wouldn't stop, and you look like a different person. Like your eye contact and everything changes. It's a different persona altogether, it seems like. It's not a different personality in there, but it's just something that comes out. And you talk about things like, oh, I wonder what life would be like if I was inside you, if I could just be inside you for a day. And it's like, okay, that's clearly like, you're saying it like a joke, but like,
I meant it.
clearly,
I was like,
yeah.
I was so fixated on him, and I had delusions about him, like really freaky things. I didn't even tell you the worst of it because it was just so bizarre. But the thing about like wanting to be in you was this obsession that like I would know you if I was like wearing you as a meat suit, basically. I don't know if I'd call that a delusion, but it was this fixation that I needed to be inside of you. Like I absolutely like could not survive unless I was like in your brain, in your body, in your organs. Like,
yeah, when you say that, it sounds like you're coming on to me at first.
I need to be inside you.
I guess I'm John Malkovich. John, except for last name's not Malkovich. No, but it was. God. It felt like I was constantly juggling everything to keep Carolyn safe and sort of life together. Like, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Mr. Magoo, but he was a cartoon character that was blind, and he would just walk through, so he'd be walking through a factory for some reason, or out in public, and like he'd duck and a beam would go over his head, and he'd stand back up, and like an arrow would fly like right in front of where he was. So he was just completely unaware of all this danger, and he would just accidentally avoid it.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like you were like, except for I had to constantly, like, I'm catching plates and stuff as they fall.
Yeah.
It was insanely stressful.
I was, like, dressing weird. Like, you were pointing out that I would dress really, like, extreme or lavish or sexy.
Yeah,
like,
well,
just to go out.
Well, when you went manic, you started dressing very provocatively. So in addition to, like, dressing provocatively, just marked changes in personality. Usually extreme shifts from one to another can be a symptom of mania. Some people gamble. Some people will start just doing risky things just to do the risky thing. Some people become promiscuous. It's just when people go manic, that's one of the signs generally, is like an extreme personality shift. And you wouldn't notice some of it, and I'd point it out. And so you would know because I'd tell you, but you kind of fight me on that stuff.
Yeah, it's really hard in that state to accept like the reality of anything. And so if you're telling me like, Carolyn, you're manic, I'm like, I'm the calmest person I know. Like, I am so even Stevens, you know. I don't know what you're talking about because my mind is racing so fast, but I think that like that's the level everyone's mind is at. So we're totally cool, right?
Yeah. And so it's just scary. It was very stressful, very scary. I never knew what I was going to get.
Yeah.
You know, I talk about it. Like, just even your eye contact changed. It was just noticeable, and it was very worrisome. And so I was constantly having to check in with you. And most of the time you'd be dishonest. And you'd tell me it's because you were afraid to admit it or whatever. But there were multiple hospital trips, like I said, and it was just very stressful in the meantime. It was very difficult. It's not for the faint of heart, I guess. I
don't know how, like, coming into a brand new relationship and not having dealt with this before, and you know, learning about people in the beginning of a relationship, right, normally doesn't involve learning that their mind can go so far out of control. Like, you know, at the beginning of a relationship, you'd think it would be like, oh, you like that band? Yeah. And instead it's like, oh, you need me to take you to the hospital again? It was like I felt really bad about it. Like, I felt really bad that the whole first year of our relationship, I was, I guess, having to put you through so much. I felt out of control, and I felt really bad. You know, I felt like everyone, you know, when they first start dating someone, there's like that honeymoon period where they're crazy about each other, and we didn't get that. And I felt like, you know, we kind of got robbed of those rosy like first few months that most couples get to have. Like us getting to know each other was a lot different than most couples.
Right. Well, I mean, it was just terrifying and depressing and miserable, to be honest with you. It's ugly.
Yeah.
It just is. It was really difficult on my end. And I felt like, I should say, couldn't share how I was feeling, right? Couldn't have moments of weakness. If I was having, because I have borderline personality disorder, I have ADHD, I've got a lot of trauma in my life, and that's still very early in my own recovery. So I've still got all this stuff that, like, I don't get a chance to really deal with because I'm having to deal with Carolyn's stuff, and I'm having to make sure that Carolyn's okay. And if I break, everything's going to fall apart. So I have to, kind of carry all this burden.
You carried a lot.
Yeah, but it would come out in these huge, ugly explosions because I'd hold it to the point where I couldn't hold it anymore.
Yeah.
And there were definite times when you wanted to go to the hospital when I had to start saying, like, it's not working. You're just running away from it. Like, something actually needs to change. And that's where all those check-ins came in. It was just scary. It was kind of awful. But it was nice when you started to improve. And I don't really worry about that stuff anymore. I don't have to check in with that. Like,
I've been in remission since 2020.
Yeah. No, you've been a lot better, so I don't really have to concern myself. I used to have to watch out for anything that might trigger you. I used to have to be on top. People would get the impression that I was controlling or abusive because when we were together around certain people, I'd have to kind of loom and listen and make sure the conversation didn't go a direction that was going to be triggering. And part of the problem was Carolyn would start those conversations, not expecting things like gore and stuff like that to come up, and I'd have to find ways to interject, and people would like look at me like I was an asshole, but like I can't explain to them, hey, if I let this conversation go on for 5 minutes, it's going to be like 3 days of hell at home while Carolyn, sits dissociated, in one state until they come out of that. And it's like,
when I tell people,
is it going to be up here or is it going to be down here when they come out of it? So
when I tell people, like, look, now I'm better. Like, back then I would super naively go into conversations being like, oh, my favorite movie is Hellraiser, not thinking like I can't watch Hellraiser anymore because I'm triggered by Hellraiser, but this is a fact. Like, I would say things like from my past life of like, I love this horror movie and I love, like, not really thinking like, okay, I can't talk about that, I can't revisit that. And then he said, it would be days of me ruminating on gore and like living it, because when I go psychotic I experience it. Like it is something that does happen to me, and now I'm better about it. And fortunately today it doesn't affect me the way it did back then, but back then it was visceral.
Right. Well, part of the issue is having to. So, when Carolyn and I started dating and they were going through these things, the only way to put it is Carolyn had like the emotional stability of like a 4 or 5 year old.
Oh yeah.
And also the ability to set boundaries of like a 5 or 6 year old. So it wasn't just if she had this conversation she was going to be triggered. She didn't expect that having any part of that conversation was going to cause the other person to interact and go farther and farther. And then when Carolyn sets those boundaries, she's too specific about her condition and, I do this and that. And so they don't ever hear, don't send me that. So Carolyn's still trying to learn how to just say stop or don't and just leave it at that. Which would be a more direct message to it. But
it's like in the past. Well, sorry to interrupt, but like in the past when I've told people things like really specifically, like, no, I can't handle that specifically because, for instance, I had a hallucination of being on fire, like a delusion / hallucination, believing I'm dying, seeing myself on fire. And I told someone that, and they start telling me about instances of people burning to death. Like, did you not hear the part where I just said that happened to me? But they don't equate it. They think, oh, this is a conversation topic that we just started, and then people will So I've had to like not actually, I mean, here on the internet, I talk about this stuff very openly, but now I have to be really, really careful with people in my daily life, because if they're not familiar with psychosis, they don't understand how real it is. And
and part of the problem is like being overly specific about what the trigger is, because like, oh, I just won't talk about that movie, or I just won't talk about that limb being hacked off. We'll go over here with it. And it's like you just can't have the conversation at all. But I don't have to worry about that so much anymore. I don't have to worry about what people you're around, what conversations you're having. There used to have to be constant check-ins and stuff like that. It's just not like that anymore. Carolyn would hide some of this stuff, like have people sending her certain things because she was just in denial, like, hey, that part of your life is over. At least for now, you can't look at or engage in any of that stuff. But Carolyn slowly got better. There was a point where we wouldn't test the boundaries at all.
Yeah.
At all. And stuff would pop up on media, just stupid stuff like Bob's Burgers every now and then shows insanely visceral stuff. And when that would pop up on TV, we'd have to change it, and it would be a problem for Carolyn for days. And now it's just kind of a brief, and maybe she thinks about it a little bit, but it's not so much fixated on that.
The farther removed I am from the psychosis, the less I experience it, because even outside of psychosis, having been in a mental state where I was experiencing things that weren't happening to me, even after psychosis, seeing something like that on TV, I would experience it as realistically because I was used to feeling things that realistically. Like after psychosis, I could put myself back in that place. Like if I unintentionally felt that, this was something that upset me, I would feel it in every aspect. But like it is a lot better today. And I think we've gotten through so much, not just with the psychosis, but in other aspects of our relationship, that like we're finally done with you being my caregiver. I feel like that role lasted for several years. John was actually my caregiver.
Well, it got to a point where I was split into two different roles, and I could never be partner.
Yeah.
There was a period where I was only caregiver, and like I said, there were times when I really worried about our relationship because I didn't want to become dad permanently.
Yeah.
And I recognized we were starting to cross into territory where that's all I was.
Yeah.
And so luckily I saw that, and we kind of changed things up, but
it was hard though.
Having gone through that though, early on in the relationship, the good thing about that is like, what's going to happen now? Like if you start to have issues again, I know what to do. Mm-hmm. There isn't a whole lot relative to that's going to cause too much strain or stress in the relationship. I don't fixate on negative things, or I don't believe if somebody breaks your trust once, that means you can never trust them again. And that's honestly bullshit. And that's kind of the point of view a lot of people have. You just have to focus on finding ways and reasons to trust the person and let them prove they're still trustworthy. People can earn that back, and it doesn't have to be so difficult. Mm-hmm. It can be really, you can have a lot of insecurity as a partner caring for somebody who has psychosis because there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a ton of uncertainty, and the one thing you need to have is you need to have other people in your life you can talk to about it, because you can't hold on to it all yourself. You have to find a way to communicate some of this stuff to your partner in a way that they can digest and understand. You have to be very patient and tolerant about that, and you don't get to blame your partner for what they're going through. You got to find a way to make sure what you're communicating to your partner actually gets through. And there can be some fighting on that sometimes, but they can't get better. Carolyn's gotten much better. I don't have to worry about the things I used to. I don't carry as much stress or as much burden about it. I'd have to ask about every TV show we watched. Ask about every movie. Like I said, watch and monitor the conversations a little bit. And now Carolyn can handle a lot more, and we can test boundaries with triggers and find out, oh, that's actually okay to watch now.
We watched Adventure Time.
Right. Like, oh, this stuff is, and there were moments when we're like, okay, we got to skip past that.
Yeah.
But they're not, dozens of TV shows would be ruined like that as soon as something would come up because we wouldn't be able to trust it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a show right now we started to watch that there was a character that had a lot of psychic powers. And so people were literally living in delusion and hallucination, and that was not, we couldn't watch it.
Oh, what show was that?
That was, well, it's X-Men 99 or
Oh,
whatever.
that was rough.
We can't watch that though, because they did a really good job depicting what it would be like to be stuck in that kind of thing and not know it. But maybe down the road we can watch something
That
like
is
that,
absolutely
you know?
true, because there's things that like I couldn't handle when we first started dating, and now I'm getting through them. Like I was able to revisit a lot. It just took several years.
Right. You don't, I don't know how much farther I can talk about and repeat some of this stuff. It's just, there's a lot of things that are really intangible that are hard to describe. It's just, you got to assess whether or not you're going to be able to be in a relationship with someone like that. And in our case, I didn't know what I was getting into, but I care about Carolyn a great deal. So it was like, okay, let's do this, you know. But again, I can't stress enough how scary it was, how dark it got for me, and how much time I spent trying to do it alone that really I shouldn't have had to. You know, there are support groups for caregivers like that. And just having a good group of people around you that you can talk to that understand what's going on. Because some people will be like, oh, you need to get away from them, or oh, that's codependence, this or that. You just need people in your life because you won't be able to carry it by yourself. But it can be rewarding. It's been very rewarding watching Carolyn grow and change out of it. Yeah.
I think that was very beautiful. Well said. Oh gosh, I
Justin
can't. Well, I can't say enough how grateful I am for John, and you know, I don't know where I'd be without you. Honestly, I think I'd probably be in the psych ward still. John has gotten me through. John has gotten me through the worst years of my life. So I'm really glad you stuck around and helped me through that.
Me too.
So should we wrap up?
We should wrap up.
Okay.
Let's wrap up.
Thank you so much for watching our video.
You want to wrap up? Oh.
We truly appreciate you watching, and thank you, John, for being my guest today. Sorry.
She struck me. All right, guys.
No, wait. I got a little outro. You ready? Yep. A whole little spiel that I do. How does it go? Thank you for watching. I put out videos every Thursday/Friday, as well as TikTok compilations on Mondays. I also have merch. If you're interested in some cool hoodies or mugs or stickers, you can find a link to my merch in the description box below. If you'd like to support my content further, you can like or subscribe or hit that bell. And if you'd like to leave a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know if you've been through a relationship in psychosis, whether it was with a significant other like us or a loved one, a family member, whoever it may be. And what was that experience like for you? Let us know. Anyway, if you'd like to see more of my content, there will be plenty more coming soon. Thanks, everyone.
And if you're going to gripe about this, go someplace else.
Oh, you're right. No negativity
we don't need that
in the comments.
Take it somewhere else.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.